Saturday Morning Nerd Show. I'm your host, Marcus Blake, and joining me today is the gaming staff and our veterans, Mr. Chad Womack.
Morning, folks.
And Mr. K. Scott Cooper.
What's up, gang?
And we have a guest today, our friend from Alcon, James Anderson. Say hi to our audience.
How are you doing, everyone?
So today is a bit of a special show. The reason we have all the veterans on is we're doing kind of a veteran-themed show today. If you notice the title of our show, we are talking about war movies and TV shows that get it, that technically get it right. And also, we're going to be talking about the new film from Tom Hanks called Greyhound. So James is on our show today because he is an actor and a military technical advisor that works with Dale Dye, who was on the film. And we're going to interview him. He's going to tell some stuff about putting the movie together, and we're going to do a quick review of the film. And we're very excited about this. We've all seen it. It's a very good film. And if you have not seen it, it is on Apple Plus TV. If you're worried about getting Apple Plus TV because you don't want to pay for another streaming service, fine. Do the 7-day trial and watch this movie. It's worth it. But before we get to that, we want to give a shout out to our friend Brendan Smith, who could not join us this morning. He had emergency surgery this week and had his appendix taken out. He went above and beyond trying to get a day off and get that doctor's note, but no, I kid. But he is recuperating. Everything went fine. And if you're out on social media and you're friends with Brendan, give him a shout out. So we're glad that he is doing okay, and he'll be back soon on this podcast. So without further ado, let's get started. And you know what we get started with? This week's Sign of the Apocalypse. There's always something happening in the nerd universe, and we got to talk about it. So apparently Ray Fisher from the Justice League movie, who plays Cyborg, decided to go on Twitter over the last couple of weeks and call out Joss Whedon as being horrible on set and very unprofessional. And then it started a whole series of crap with social media and Twitter and blah, 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 where he's being called out as a fake feminist and horrible to women. And then my favorite part, when asked for detail, well, I can't give you details because we signed that NDA, but yet you can throw shit on Twitter to start controversy. So the first thing I have to say about this as we get into it, don't the DC movies with Warner Brothers already have enough problems beyond this stupid shit?
And back, so they're strike one.
Well, I find it very interesting that we're throwing out controversy about Joss Whedon like a month after they announced that they're going to do the Snyder Cut on HBO Max next year. So
Convenient.
Is this your way of drumming up publicity? Is Ray Fisher the sacrificial lamb because he's not as famous as everybody?
Or is this a frenemies situation kind of thing? Like they're both trying to hype each other, so like
right.
Beef.
So I'm curious to know everybody's take on this, and we're actually going to start with our guest, James. I don't know if you're a huge fan of DC versus Marvel or anything, but I'm sure you've heard about this. But what do you think of this little controversy?
I'm more of a multi-purpose nerd, but I've always found it interesting. I've signed NDAs myself, and there are some things that are covered under that, but I don't think I've ever read a clause where it said you couldn't talk specifically about abuse on set. So that sounds a little shady to me. But I don't know. It sounds like it could be hype, or maybe Joss Whedon did do something to upset the guy. I don't know.
Chad, what do you think?
Yeah, the timing does seem a little bit off. That, and I maybe there is some merit to your thought of he's a sacrificial lamb, because honestly, outside of this and True Detective, I really can't think of anything else the guy's known for.
Right.
So, okay.
Well, I was in season 3 of True Detective. Scott, how about you? Is this even really a controversy?
I'm going to say one, who the fuck really cares? But ultimately, as to hit on a point that James already said, NDAs don't cover being a dickhead. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole, and the world needs to know about it. I mean, 9 times out of 10, the best stuff you get is, the guy's the boom operator going, "Hey, I can't tell you deets about the film, but let me tell you about this motherfucker over here." Shooting this scene, right? And you're like,
Right.
okay. And it's like there's things you can say, and there how to say things, and then but everyone else has already hit all the other points. It's like it sounds rather suspicious. It doesn't really make any damn sense, And okay, cool, whatever.
Yeah, my thing is, does it stop Joss Whedon from being a great filmmaker? Is it, is this just adding more controversy to an already controversial film because Zack Snyder had to leave and they had to bring him in? It's very different, and why have we not heard of other stories where he's been, horrible to women? I mean, even his ex-wife said that he was a fake feminist this week. I'm just like, are people not paying enough attention to you in social media that you have to start this shit? I mean, and to Scott's point, who gives a shit? It doesn't really matter.
Because they're still going to hire the motherfucker. It doesn't matter whether or not he's a misogynist and a bigot and a racist asshole or what the fuck ever, Hollywood's still going to fucking hire him because he makes money, and as long as he's making that moolah, no one gives a shit,
Look, I don't need you to be, really nice to me and tell me that everything's going to be okay. Just get the job done. We've all had drill sergeants. We know how this works. Grow a pair.
If Woody Allen can keep working, so can Joss Whedon.
Right. Here's my favorite part of this, though. It's everybody has to jump on the bandwagon, and my favorite really came from Kevin Smith. Now, I have the ultimate respect for Kevin Smith, love Kevin Smith, but this is not a story when Kevin Smith has to go on, well, I heard from somebody that he was abusive. Because literally when you start that crap, this is the person you sound like.
My best friend's boyfriend's brother's girlfriend first thing was died and then my parents helped out at 31 Flavors last time.
Yeah, you're Kristen Swanson from Ferris Bueller. It's like you heard from a guy that something happened, and to Scott's point, is it just the boom guy that's, trying to feel important on set? Anyway, I think we're going to have enough controversy next year when we actually are watching the Snyder version, comparing it to the old Justice League movie. And, this is DC. It's always going to be filled with controversy because, A, you're trying to be Marvel and they won that war a long time ago, and you're still trying to remain relevant. So, anyway, but that's this week's Sound of the Apocalypse. More controversy around the Justice League movie and from the world of who gives a shit. I think there's more important things.
More controversy than it really deserves.
Yeah. Oh, and by the way, if you're really that upset about everything with Joss Whedon, guess what's on Hulu that you can binge this weekend? Yeah, Firefly. It's my recommendation. All right, a couple of quick items before we start talking about the movie Greyhound. First, if you are a fan of the Hannah series on Amazon, season 2 dropped last weekend during the 4th of July weekend. So you can catch up on that. Season 2's pretty good if you're a fan. They did a great job with it. 2, there's a really funny kind of Groundhog Day movie that we're reviewing. It's on Hulu called Palm Springs with Andy Samberg, Infinite Time Loop and stuff like that. We'll get you a review of that movie and tell you what we think. It's pretty funny, but the first thing to remember about this movie is Andy Samberg is not Bill Murray, and who can be? Also, this is not really this week's Sound of the Apocalypse. I just wanted to throw it out there for a little controversy on our own. Since everybody has been caught up watching Hamilton on Disney Plus, I'm going to go ahead and say it. Hamilton was not that good. compared to the other great revolutionary musical called 1776. Just throwing it out there. Agree, disagree, or am I just talking nonsense?
I
Gonna
have
have to agree with you.
neither of those. I have never seen Hamilton. I've never seen it. I don't like musicals, so what the fuck ever.
I haven't watched it yet, so I have every intention,
Yeah,
but I just haven't done it yet.
hey, I applaud what they did in a new style. It's fantastic. I love Lin-Manuel Miranda, but like whatever, still not 1776. Anyway, all right. Let's talk about the movie Greyhound, which we've all had a chance to watch. I'm going to be the first to say it. My first recommendation is don't be doing other stuff while you're trying to watch this movie. It's too intense for you to be distracted, because I had to keep rewinding, and I've basically watched it twice. Great Navy movie. I was very, very impressed with how intense they made it within an hour and a half. I feel like you just don't really have time to breathe with all of the action, and you shouldn't. I mean, you should absolutely feel that intensity with the movie. Chad, you're the Navy guy on this show. Tell us what you think.
The experience that you go through in this film, you really do feel like you're on the bridge, because I lived that life for 4 years. Coincidentally enough, the ship that they used as the bridge model is kind of like the grandfather of the ship that I was on. They filmed a lot of it on the USS Kidd that's moored in Baton Rouge. And I was on the Kidd class destroyers, the DDGs. The original Kidd is a DD, and it's the only museum quality destroyer of its class in existence. They keep it on the Mississippi River for like 6 months out of the year, and then they take it and dry dock it for another 6 months when the river level drops. And so it's in incredibly good shape. And hats off to the guys that were, you included, sir, that were involved in this thing. It was actually spine-tingling when I read that, and I saw that I've got kind of like a 6 degrees of separation connection to this film because I was on a Kidd class destroyer. Kind of gave me goosebumps. Very authentic. Every time I heard Messenger, my hair stood up because I got called that a lot when I was on the bridge. Got stuck making mochaccino for the captain more times than I can count. But and I've been through that patch of water as well. We actually lost about 40 to 50 feet of our lifeline welded to the deck of the forecastle when we hit a big wave. I actually had to pause it and show my wife, you see that wave they're hitting? We hit one twice that size. We lost half the stuff welded to the deck. We had to haul ass to Germany to get it fixed.
And that's when your wife was looking at you. You're so pretty, Chad.
Well, I told her that story before, but it was good to like have a still frame to like use as a point of reference. I'm like, you see that right there? That's what was gone. She's like, holy shit. So I know what it's like being in water that rough. So kudos to everybody for making this look, feel, sound incredibly authentic. It was incredibly tense. Like you said, Marcus, you blink, you miss something.
Oh yeah.
And if I have any one criticism of this film, and I don't know if it's really can be called a criticism, because I don't quite understand, were they restricted to a 90-minute runtime? Was that like their goal? They had to keep it under 90 minutes?
No, that wasn't a goal at all. It just wound up being the cut. There was a lot that we filmed over about 2.5 months that did not make it into that film.
Okay. I was just curious about that, because the only thing that I felt was kind of missing was I didn't feel like we got a chance to know these guys on the ship enough when something bad happened. Because something bad is always going to happen in battle. And the one thing that I felt was missing was forging a deep connection between these guys that are putting their lives on the line. We get a really good look at the captain, we get a really good look at the XO and the guys in combat information, especially the guy that was a sonar tech. But I wanted to know these guys. I wanted to build a relationship with these guys. And I know it's not fair to compare it to other films in the genre, especially in World War II. But when you look at a film like Saving Private Ryan, where you actually get a chance to develop a relationship with every guy in that squad. And I know you can't develop a relationship with every guy on the ship, But like you had the two guys that came in for captain's mast at the beginning of it, and I'm like, okay, we never get back to those guys. And I figured that that's why they put that scene in, because we were going to, unless I missed something. But that would be my only real criticism of the film, is that I wanted to cheer for these guys a little bit more than I already was. And God knows I was cheering for them, especially when you got the crap talking jackass on the gray wolf on the squawk box. Really makes me cheer for the good guys to conquer this jackass that's taunting them the whole time.
To your point, Chad, I don't disagree, but I also felt like knowing who they were, their back lives, was kind of unimportant compared to how they acted during this, intense run on the sea. Like you get these little.
Is true. I agree with you there. I go with you there. It may not be necessary, but it's. I guess we're kind of spoiled to that. That's kind of what we're accustomed to,
right,
is getting a relationship with these guys in the fight. So whenever something goes wrong, you're like, oh God, that sucks. Other than the fact that their ship's getting battered, but when they lose a crew member, you don't feel like you really lost anybody. Save one example. I won't go into specifics, but it just feels like that emotional punch of these guys that you're cheering for. You don't really know them outside of maybe just a select few.
Well, one of the things that I kind of noticed is this film definitely knows its audience. It's for veterans, and it's for people who have gone through training and stuff. The other stuff is kind of like fluff for a general audience too. You want to feel these characters, build their back lives and have these moments. And again, Saving Private Ryan is a great film that does that. There's a lot of great stories that they tell about where they came from. But in this, I think what you do need to know is how they act in this situation. Remember your training, because when you're going through that stuff, the backstories aren't necessarily important as much as getting to know people in those kinds of situations, because you're doing it so quick, through training and actual warfare. So I think they did it just enough. To me, it's like the kid who, first time they get shelled, who got scared, and Tom Hanks is looking at him and telling him, remember your orders, or and for him, it's that moment of, yes, this is the first time I've been fired upon. I'm afraid, but my captain is reassuring, and there's just little things that Tom Hanks does as a captain that you also get his faith put in there. I don't think that anything need to be spoken, but the little card he had in his window, about yesterday, today, and stuff, I think kind of summed up who he is and when he prayed. So I don't think it's necessary compared to how intense everything was. If you look at a movie like U-571, yeah, they throw a few little moments in the beginning, and there's the time that Harvey Keitel and Matthew McConaughey are talking, and Keitel tells them, don't ever say you don't know as the captain. You can't be that. And it's great. But the bulk of that film is the intensity of trying to outrun this thing, ship that's trying to sink them, the maneuver and all that. So that's kind of how I felt really looking at this. Is I don't necessarily need to know all that. It's just literally, you do not have time to breathe, and you kind of feel like the only quick moments you have is when they're telling you the time and how the watch has changed. Okay?
Yeah.
You feel like no one's gotten any sleep. I mean, to me, my absolute favorite scene, he's got the two torpedoes coming at him, and it's just like, you've got to get your maneuvers just right. Okay? And
when you see him looking to the left and looking to the right and timing everything, that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I had to rewind that 3 times. Just that one scene, because I was messing around on my laptop, and I'm like, I know I missed it. And it was anyway, Scott, what did you think of the film?
I mean, it was good. It was okay. It's a great film. It's not going to get crazy on me. I'm not a big fan of naval films, but I do like World War II films. I do like action films, and I will say that it was constantly just boom, 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 boom. You really didn't get a second at all to even go, holy shit. But I think I took it a little differently than Chad did. In one aspect was I didn't really see it as a perspective of, you know, the crew. Like, you got elements in there of them, but I saw it more as like the perspective of the captain and his direct interactions, you know, with, you know, his immediate, you know, orderlies and everything else that he's in chain of command. And then it's kind of just like little hodgepodge things here and there, that kind of illustrate it or boister to it or whatever. But because, I mean, like, I don't know, I, you know, have very little experience with naval stuff. So maybe Chad can answer this. He sounded like he had a career field that constantly interacted with people of that. But I mean, honestly, how much does like somebody on a ship actually interact with their captain on a day-to-day? So I mean, in that aspect, to me, it doesn't really make sense to know a lot about them because he didn't interact with them that much. So, you know, and it's all about, you know, the chase is on, and you know, the how the hell are we going to make this work? And you know, it's really, really interesting to see how, you know, him as a captain is going from this like very new experience to him. It's very new to the, you know, to America, you know, in the war. And it's just seeing him knowing that everything he is doing is riding on the line, and it cannot go wrong, because it's not just going to mean the lives of the men on his ship, but it's going to mean countless of other lives that are going to come down the road. You just, you know, you can see that burden, that doubt in moments, but knowing that I don't have the ability to doubt myself right now because there are 20,000 people looking at me and I can't afford to, you know, fuck
Yeah,
this
you
up.
don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
Well, I think another thing that's one of the best parts is how Tom Hanks reacts to, you know, the German skipper who's just taunting them throughout the entire film. And I mean, I've never even heard of being able to have the ability to do that. I've never seen that in a film before. So I don't know if that's accurate or not. And I'm going to ask you, James. I mean, you worked on is that something that is accurate? I mean, we're
As far as the German subs being able to speak to our ships?
yeah, or taunt them.
Oh yes, it was just a matter of finding the right carrier wave at the time. You know, whatever channel everybody was on.
Okay.
And that was accurate. Yes.
Okay, because that. I mean,
they could do it. There's reports of it, I mean, happening all the time. I mean, there's talks of like naval captains who would get into it with U-boats and they would just dodge each other, and then, you know, they would get on the channel and it would be the German captain going, "Hey, that was a nice run, we'll do it again tomorrow." And you know, as we didn't, like a nod of the hat, like we didn't get each other, so you know, until we meet again, sort of thing. So
well, you know, us Army folk, we just doesn't occur to us to be able to do that. The only time we have interaction with the opposite side is when one of us got captured, you know, that kind of stuff, or an interrogation. But yeah, that was very, very intense. I loved what they did with that and the taunting. So James, you finally have seen the entire film put together. What did you think of it, having worked on it for a couple of months?
Well, there were a few things that I kind of wish they had included in the film. I understand that they cut it down to about an hour 30 for theatrical release, but with it going straight to streaming, I think they missed out hugely on an opportunity to tell more of the story that we had filmed, such as the two crewmates that wound up before the captain's mast. We actually had filmed the entire scene where they got into that fight, heard in the mess hall, etc., and we got a bit of a backstory on that we didn't get to see in the film. But besides that, we actually had quite a bit of what we had filmed in there. It took several months just to be able to put together a lot of those action scenes, and we filmed it mostly on the USS Kidd, part of it in a soundstage on top of a gimbal. They reconstructed the bridge itself on a gimbal there in Baton Rouge, and then there were some shots of ship movements that actually occurred on a British naval vessel. It was also a Fletcher-class destroyer. There are 4 of them left on the planet in total. But it was a good film. It's one of the few times I've actually managed to watch a war film and not get sucked out due to my inability to acquiesce to reasonable suspension of disbelief. It's one of my biggest problems.
Well, hence the topic of the show, because there's a lot of films we can complain about. One, I'm definitely going to complain about. It's a shame that Brendan's not joining us today because he was actually there when they were filming this particular film, but we'll get into that later. So overall, I mean, it isn't a perfect film. I agree that you could definitely tell some backstories and make it a little bit longer to know these characters. I would personally give it an 8 out of 10. That's how I'm reviewing it, because just the intensity of it's basically one big, prologue of a battle. And you feel that intensity with all of the sailors who are on there. And but the only time you really have time to breathe is when they announced the watch, and then they were trying to do the funerals for the 3 crewmates, and then they immediately have to go back into battle again. But I think it fits perfectly if you're just trying to tell the battle itself. That an hour and a half is fine. But it does. One of the things that I personally enjoyed is I wasn't aware of how dangerous it was trying to do cargo ships at that time, and everything that was really going on, and how limited air cover was and stuff. That's something that I did a little bit more research on after I watched the film, and I thought that was fascinating. So
Well, the Battle of the Atlantic was actually one of the bloodiest battles of the war, and it's by far, in my opinion, one of the least told stories.
well, and the Pacific gets so much romanticized in the Navy that you're right, and we don't, because if you think about World War II, there's 2 things that we think about. We think about bombers, and then finally D-Day, when we finally got soldiers on the ground and invaded Europe. So we don't talk about everything that happened in the years before, and stuff. So, but anyway, like I said, it's an 8 out of 10. It's a great film for every veteran out there that loves war films. Even if you just generally love war films, I personally highly recommend it. Chad, how about you? What kind of grade would you give it?
I'm right there with you. About the same score, but I would give it a 10 out of 10 if you want something to work out your subwoofer. My
Nice.
subwoofer needed a cigarette and a drink when that movie was over.
Nice. Scott, how about you?
I'm going to say 8 out of 10.
Wow, all agree. Well, we're done. Apocalypse is here.
That's high praise coming from you, gentlemen. I've watched your show before, and that's definitely high praise.
But James, I know you're a little biased because you worked on the film, but after seeing it put together, we grade things 1 through 10. How would you do it? And you're allowed to say a perfect 10 because you worked on it. There's no judgment.
Yeah, we're going to rip the shit out of you if you fucking do those. Just be warned.
Well, having been a crew chief and working on an aircraft a good part of my career, I'll tell you this, I never grade even my own work at a 10 out of 10. So I'd say, 8 out of 10 is probably accurate.
All right. Well, a few months ago, James and I shared, a couple of beers, and we had a chance to talk at All-Con, one of our favorite conventions. That's how I found out that we've all talked over the years at this convention, but that's how I found out you were in this business and found out about the film. Anyway, very sad what happened to All-Con. It's the first time I've ever been to a convention where the opening and closing night party was all the same guy. And
That was one heck of a day.
Yeah, I really felt
Grand opening, grand closing.
But it turned out to be another party the next night. I was very glad I stopped by. So let me ask you this. How long have you been a military technical advisor? How long have you been doing this now?
Well, actually, 2 years. My very first film was Greyhound. We filmed it back in 2018. And then I went on to do other TV shows and films, some background work like in True Detective Season 3. And I've only been a technical advisor on 2 other projects, one of which was The Hunt that came out back in March of this year.
Okay. We haven't had a chance to talk about that film. All the press screenings got canceled because of all the damn controversy surrounding it.
Right. It was supposed to come out September of last year, so it was just a happy day that it came out at all.
Right. But in working on Greyhound, I mean, I just assumed that anytime you work on a Tom Hanks film, it's got to be a wonderful experience because he's Tom Hanks. And I don't know anybody that has anything bad to say about Tom Hanks. So what was your experience like on this film?
Oh, it was absolutely the best film I've ever worked on. The everybody on it, the crew, the cast, the casting directors, Mr. Hanks himself, all fantastic people. I honestly haven't had a comparable experience since that film, and it's one of those kind of downtrodden things. I'm very happy and super proud that I got to do that, but it was my first work, and everything else after that has been fun, but slightly a letdown in comparison, if you can imagine.
Put yourself up there. Just standing too goddamn high.
Right? It's like starting off a colonel and ending your career as an airman first class. It just doesn't work out right.
Hello there, fellow nerds. I'm Marcus Blake, the editor and producer of That Nerd Show, and we need your help. That's right, we need your support. Like any news outlet, we rely on advertising and donations to keep the lights on. To be the greatest show in this universe, we need funding, and that's where you come in. Like most artists out there, we actually have a Patreon account, and we're asking for donations. But we're not just asking for you to give us money. We actually have stuff that we're going to be giving away if you donate. So we'll be uploading more and more videos to our Patreon account from YouTube, from our daily news to interviews with celebrities to gaming videos and all of our other individual shows that we are doing here in 2020. But to keep us going, we need a little bit of funding. And again, that's where you come in. So it can be as little as $1. $1 makes all the difference in the world. And you can do anywhere from $1 to $3 to $5, all the way up to $500. And we're going to be giving stuff away for your donations. So you could get some Nerd Power wristbands or any other wristbands from our series of wristbands that we're creating for nerds. You can get cool retro gaming t-shirts from our Nerd Swag shop if you make a donation of $20 or more. You can even get advertising on our website or within our videos if you make a purchase or donate $50 or more dollars. We have different tiers, like most artists. Want that new video game that's coming out this year? You want to be playing the same video game we are as we're reviewing it? Hey, you can do that with a $100 donation. Are you looking to get a new console before the year is out? Hey, $500 and you can get an Xbox One, a PlayStation 4, or even a Nintendo Switch. It just takes a little bit to help us. As little as $1 per video that we do. And we're going to have a variety of videos that you can help support. So if you like our content, if you like everything that we do as nerds, from honest conversations about pop culture to great celebrity interviews to wacky and fun gaming videos, then help support us on our Patreon account. You can check us out at patreon.com/thatnerdshow. You can check us out at patreon.com/that. Take 3. Go to patreon.com/thatnerdshow and make your donation today. Even if it's just $1. We would greatly appreciate it. Thank you and stay nerdy.
It's like your first girlfriend coming out of college is like a 10. You've never had a girlfriend else before, but like you got this smoking hot supermodel on your arm, and you're just like, yeah, it's great, it's cool, whatever.
Well, well, hey, it's been a while since Spielberg and Hanks got together to do a war film. I say to Spielberg, we don't care about you doing West Side Story. Okay, let's get back and do a real film. Anyway,
West Side Story's a thing.
Well, they are making another made-for-TV series centering around the 8th Air Force. So it's going to be the third in the line for Band of Brothers of the Pacific.
Yes, and I've been hearing a lot about that, which is something I actually want to talk about a little bit later. I wanted to bring that out as we get into the film, but I'll wait. How did you get into this business? Was it kind of by accident, or is it something that you wanted to do after you got out of the Air Force?
I've always had a passion for military history, strategy, and tactics. It's what I went to college for. Ever since I was a little kid, my first shuttle launch back in the 80s, and the first few things that I got to see in regards to U.S. military history, I got a huge passion for it. Instead of having bands and artists up on my wall, I actually had framed pictures of Patton, of Alvin York, and believe it or not, Captain Dale Dye. So getting to work with him was actually the biggest part of this film for me. He was one heck of a leader, and honestly, I wish I had served under him in the military. It was one of the best experiences of my life there. But it was an accident, actually. A friend of mine messaged me, said, "Hey, I know you just medically retired from the military, and you've got this background in history that Tom Hanks is doing another World War II film. You should look into it." So I looked at the link, wound up submitting my application, and an hour and a half later, I had a call back. They asked me to show up in New Orleans and sign the paperwork.
Nice.
The next day.
God.
I literally packed my car that night, drove straight to New Orleans, and was at their office when they opened up.
Oh, wow.
And
Well,
you've known me for what, about 8 years now, going to Alcon, but I sat here and I molded over for about half an hour, and finally my wife, who also was a C-130 crew chief, slapped me in the back of the head and told me if I didn't pack my bags and go, I was done.
Get your ass out the door.
yeah. By the way, in case you're wondering, that's a good wife right there.
It is.
Yes, it
very
is.
lucky. I got very lucky.
That's a Swiss Army wife there.
Now, I know in knowing you over the years at Alcon, I know you do a lot with military cosplay. That's actually how we met Scott years ago too. Alcon. This is one of the reasons I love Alcon. Is to me, it's really the best convention because it's a fans convention. You're never going to have huge celebrities there. It's basically it's like a family reunion for nerds. That's really what it is, where you get to dress up and just be you. What is your favorite thing from the military to cosplay, James?
This is going to sound super stupid because I was Air Force, but Stargate's one of my favorite things just because it's one of the few times where they actually took the Air Force and went, "Hey, we're going to give you something cool."
Another bunch of spoobs. Yeah.
Fair enough. So, I know it was a wonderful experience. You were telling me earlier that Tom Hanks loves to have a good time and play practical jokes on set. Could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Every day he liked to play music and have flashing lights wherever we had lights set up when he came to work. So it was always a really fun opening to the day. But one of the things that he loved to do, if you happened, and you're not supposed to have your cell phone on set ever, but if you happen to be an actor or somebody on the crew and your cell phone happened to be sitting somewhere rather than in your pocket, Mr. Hanks would walk up, grab it, activate the camera on your phone, and take a selfie of him doing something ridiculous, like eating an apple with crazy eyes or some other things that I probably shouldn't talk about.
Well, we're not tabloid. We don't want those pictures released. But that sounds awesome, especially if you're with someone and they're checking your phone. Why is there a selfie of Tom Hanks on your phone? Explain yourself.
Right. We actually had a pretty good time. We'd be in between scenes. They'd be setting up new camera angles, and we'd be moving on to the next scene. I'd be on my gun emplacement, and the next thing I know, Mr. Hanks, whose station was on the bridge directly above my gun emplacement, would lean over and start stroking the top of my M1 helmet like I were a cat. Or we'd be standing there on the gun emplacement, and he would just scream something random from the bridge, scared the ever-loving crud out of all of us. And as soon as we looked up, he'd pull the old elevator trick and just sink below the deck there.
That is awesome.
He was great. They did a very good job of making everyone feel included. They took care of, even down to background, everybody else. Everyone ate the same food. The catering was fantastic. Craft services, they did not stop bringing us liquids and foods to keep us all energized, because we were working, sometimes 12 to 16-hour days, putting this thing together on the Mississippi River on this old naval destroyer, wearing full World War II wools, the overcoats, and of course the jean uniforms that were common in the Navy at the time. And even though it was early in the year, it's still Louisiana. The humidity's high,
Right.
and they kept us going. I don't think we had that many people fall out from heat exhaustion. I don't remember a single case of anyone falling out from heat exhaustion, to be honest. There were a couple of incidents here and there, but it wasn't anything drastic. And I honestly, like I said, it was one of the sets where we were actually taken care of the most, where everyone felt like they were a part of the project. And there was just an air of mutual respect amongst the entire cast and crew.
Making a war film kind of sounds like military training.
That's one of the great things about a lot of Hollywood. It feels very much like a military environment when you're filming something. You have a chain of command, you have certain tasks that you have to do, and there is a heck of a lot of hurry up and wait.
One of my kind of biggest complaints about sets and trying to do stuff is I'm very much, as a producer, military. There's a list that I got to go through, all the checks. We got to do it at a certain time, and these guys know that my OCD kicks in, and I'm just like getting frustrated. But I feel like everything has to be organized like that to get it right. And I can't stand just like, we'll get to it. People showing up late, and you don't. And I've been called out, it's like, you don't have the temperament for this industry. And I'm like, do you think that maybe it would be better if it's run like a military organization and you got shit done?
Right.
Am I wrong on that? But anyway, it sounds like it was a fantastic experience, and very happy for you, and looking forward to hearing more about what else you're working on.
Thank you. It was a great experience. I loved being able to work with Captain Dye and Lieutenant Stokey, his XO. They had those of us that were prior military. There were only a handful of us on the ship, and they'd station us in different sections of the ship. So I had, along with another veteran friend of mine, Daniel Sullivan, we had the forward section of the ship on the 4-1 and 4-2 40 millimeter Beaufort weapons. You'll see those sitting just below the bridge and just behind the second 5-inch gun, where the majority of the battle scenes, you saw the guys sitting on this 2-barreled weapon shooting at all the German submarines. That was our gun crew. And,
I caught you a few times in the film. I mean, it goes by fast, but I saw you on screen, buddy.
And then we had different guys spread out to each section of the ship, and we basically just tried to make sure that everybody stayed on track. Some of the younger actors, they'd forget that it's 1942 and the high five and the fist bump weren't a thing yet. So we had to make sure things like that didn't occur. Kept all the weapons going. Most of those were actually functional. We had a weapons expert team come on the ship and get as many of the weapons functional as we could. So when you see those weapons firing, they're firing. Mostly blanks and mechanically driven gas powered, but we still managed to get them going. So it was one heck of an experience. If there's anything besides watching the film that'll draw you into what it's like to be on a naval destroyer in World War II, it was actually filming the thing. Captain Dye tried to make it as realistic as possible.
That's fantastic, and I think that's the way it ought to be. One of the things that I really love about him is I have this picture of anytime that there's a movie going on, and like, damn it, we just need a military guy that we don't have to give any instruction to. Where's Dale?
Who are you going to call? They'll die.
Yeah, we're not even going to give you lines. Just do it like you would do it if you're still serving.
Yep.
So-
Captain Dye and Arlie Ermy were that way. And I remember while we were filming, it was about halfway through filming the movie, we all showed up on set and found out that Arlie Ermy had passed away. Him,
Yeah.
Captain Dye, were very good friends. So that was a fairly solemn day, as you can imagine.
Oh, I can
But,
imagine. We
not-
had a
not-
podcast that night, and we basically just turned it into our favorite stories about him, and really just about his the Mailbag show on History Channel, which one of the best shows I ever had about just stuff from the military, and I didn't think there was anybody better that could do it than him. So,
Very true.
all right. Moving right along, like I said, we wanted to talk about war films that we love, that we feel like, they get to technically right. They take great care in telling stories, and the ones that don't. And I'll just go ahead and tell you, we are not fans of the Pearl Harbor movie, directed by Michael Bay. It's a shit movie. And I bring that up because it's the 20th anniversary, and somebody suggested that there should be a re-release on 20th anniversary edition, and we should remember. I'm like, fuck you. Can we just throw that in the trash? Okay? I'm like, the only good thing about it, here's the only good thing about that film.
And Affleck dies.
Kate Beckinsale looks good, and the score is pretty nice. Other than that, I don't really give a shit. I have to share the story since Brendan is not on camera, but he loves telling it. When he was still in the Navy, was stationed in Hawaii, and he had just come off watch when they were doing the flybys by the airbase, and literally didn't get to go to bed that morning because they were filming those scenes. So he's especially pissed at Michael Bay. And he also loves to tell this story of the veterans who got invited out, who were there during the battle, didn't care to watch the movie because they got it wrong, and they just wanted to go drink in the NCO's club. So, I think that pretty much tells you that you shouldn't watch the movie. So that's the low bar of war movies that just get it wrong. But I'm going to start out. I'm going to start out with a film that we have never really talked about, and you mentioned the 8th Air Force. Memphis Belle is one of those kind of underrated war films.
Oh, God.
Anyway,
That's so
Scott, I'm not praising the film. That's not what I was doing.
I know. It's just as a World War II historian, it's something that I enjoy as well, and being in the Air Force as well. That's all anyone ever talks about is crap like that, and it's like if I hear the Memphis Belle or Enola Gay one more goddamn time, I'm gonna fucking snap. There are so many other better and more amazing fucking stories to tell of guys doing way more ballsier shit and doing way more crazy shit that you would look at and go, what? How are you not dead and or in prison or both? And it's just like, well, let me tell you something. We had this sergeant, and then that's how it. Then but no, I mean, it should. It's just no. I gotta quit. I'm gonna keep going. I gotta quit, or I'm gonna keep going. It's just that.
What I was gonna say is, it's a nice visually shot movie, and it's got a good cast to it. Okay, so you enjoy it for that. Okay, and Harry Connick Jr., which was his actual first film, does a little jazzy number, Danny Boy, and all that. But that's really about it. And I found this out years later when they started declassifying information, from the 8th Air Force and the 786th Bombing Group. I have a great uncle who died on a B-17 crew, and we didn't really know any information about this until about a lot of his missions or what happened until about 2005. And when I started digging more into it, there was a historian who was really putting everything together, and he sent me loader lists, what planes they were on, their missions, things like that got declassified. And that was the first time I realized, oh, you didn't just stay with the same crew for 25 missions. They got jumbled around and stuff. And to Scott's point, you're going to love this. Some of the there were 4 guys that actually survived that mission that he died on, that were able to bail out, and other pilots that he served with that were still alive. I was able to contact all of them, and for my family, find out stories of my great uncle Max, because they went through training together and served overseas. And there was the tail gunner that he served with on more than one mission, actually point blank said, you know that movie Memphis Belle? That's fucking horseshit. It's like, I thought it was a good movie up to this point, but okay. It really just went off about that movie. He's like, if you think that's how it was, like, okay. So I trust the veterans now. So no, I'm not really a huge fan of that movie anymore. And that's the reason I wanted to bring it up as an example of, it looks good. But as we've gotten more information that's been declassified over the last 15 years, you find out how inaccurate that really is and how they glorified that. So here's the first question I want to ask. Out of a movie or TV series, you're the number one on your list that you figure gets it technically right, that is just absolutely amazing. I want to know the top one on your list. Chad, I'm going to start with you.
At the top of the list?
Yeah, go to every time. Never disappointed, because again, they get it technically right.
Platoon.
Really? Okay.
Platoon. I mean, that was my first exposure to Dale Dye. That's what made me a fan of Dale Dye. And there was a guy that graduated from my high school, Terry McIlvain, that was in that film. And when I was taking theater class in high school, he came back like a year after the film dropped to come and talk to our theater arts department. And he bought like a stack that thick of photographs that he had taken on the set. And if you watch it again, he's the guy that they called Ace. He was always the radio guy that had the Ace of Spades playing card in his helmet.
Huh.
It's actually on the cover of the novelization. But he was a rodeo clown in the Mesquite Rodeo. I know. And he and I are actually friends on Facebook. And he used to run a haunted house every Halloween. So he was always very, very active in the Mesquite community. But it kind of gave gave me a more personal connection to that film. And I know that the Vietnam War film isn't something that they generally like to go towards, because that's the war that nobody ever wants to talk about. But it really hit it. It really hit it hard, because I went and saw it with my father, who was a Vietnam vet, and there were moments where he was just shaken to his core, watching things of like, yeah, that's what I saw. That's what we went through. That's how we felt. So right. It's always resonated with me. I mean, to me, it's always going to be a close race between Platoon and Saving Private Ryan. Now, Saving Private Ryan's always the easy choice because of who's involved. And of course, doesn't hurt that Dale Dye's involved too. Not trying to be a Dale Dye fanboy here, because I got a guy that works with him, but I've always been a fan of Dale Dye. I've always been blown away by Dale Dye's eye for detail. I was kind of shocked that I didn't see him on screen during Greyhound, unless I missed it.
You did.
Because he almost always works a cameo in.
Cool. Well, one of the things I love about Saving Private Ryan is the whole thing about the sticky bomb, which was actually true. Anyway, Scott, how about you? Is there just that? I mean, you're more of the cynic than all of us. Is there just that one go-to film or TV series that you really like that they technically get it right?
Not ringing off the top of my head, because normally, because I'm such a history buff, and because I'm really into just that. I pick stuff apart, and so I can't make it maybe about 10, 15 minutes in a military film or TV show without going, no, like as loud as I humanly can. But I guess to say it, just like it depends on the degree in which they make the errors. If if it's subtle because it was just like, oh, okay, that was something that somebody just obviously didn't research because it's little tiny thing, whatever, no one's gonna know that, whatever. But if it's like, oh no, we're totally giving another unit credit for something another unit did, it's like, no, fuck you, that's not how that went at all. And so I can't really say that there is one that I can just go to and go, no, it's perfect in every way and I love it, and because
I don't know if anything is absolutely perfect. I mean, this is Hollywood. You're never going to get it to be absolutely perfect. But I think there are films and TV series that, are in the upper echelon. Their attention to detail. Okay, so
I think the only movie that really kind of really got it for me, that really kind of attention for detail, would either have to be, To Hell and Back, because, well, it's Audie Murphy telling his own damn story. So,
Right.
There's embellishments, but still it's him telling his own damn story. Or honestly, I'd say The Longest Day, because almost everybody involved in that film served in World War II. So
Right.
they themselves just literally telling their own stories. So, I think for me, that's kind of, kind of the biggest shtick.
I love The Longest Day. I mean, we don't talk about it as much anymore because of Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan and talking about D-Day. And I mean, the first 24 minutes of Saving Private Ryan is a great film in itself.
Yeah.
Which everybody knows it. This is why I don't have faith in the Oscars anymore. I'm sorry, but when Shakespeare in Love, which is still a shitty movie, wins Best Picture over Saving Private Ryan, you're just wrong.
Yeah, no, that's not good. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think for me, the one that does it all the time is Band of Brothers. If I really look forward to when HBO, has its marathon on Memorial Day or 4th of July or something like that. And granted, I get it's probably not absolutely perfect, but I think what really makes the story is, I mean, not only do you have a good cast, and of course Dale Dodd, but you have the individual interviews and stories of these guys from Easy Company, and then they would point out little things of how this maneuver is correct and how it is part of proper training now. Things that they learned, and I mean, for anybody that's ever gone through any kind of infantry training whatsoever, the whole point of code words and flash synthetic, that's what you learn, is why that they're important. Okay. So, like I said, that's the one that does it for me more than anything else, that I can watch that over and over, and I feel like I'm always discovering something new. Again, I love Saving Private Ryan, absolutely. But in the Pacific, too, to its credit as well, I think is very, very good. But I think we kind of romanticize more about D-Day than anything else because of that starting point, everything that they had to go through in taking town by town and their march to Berlin.
Well, I mean, and I think why we romanticize D-Day so much is because of the fact that it is, in a sense, a more typical thought of the evolution of war. As like, the Pacific shows us, it was a lot different for those who served there, because it wasn't where you were going to get the ability to do R&R or anything else like that. No, you're fighting on this very, very tiny island. And so, it's not like just battle and then wait and then battle and then wait. No, it's battle and then long-term suffering, battle and then long-term suffering. And so I think it's a little bit more difficult to tell those kinds of stories and still not have it to be the most depressing thing in the world. Where you're watching this and you go, oh my God, I cannot do one more fucking episode because I'm literally about to have a breakdown.
Yeah. James, being in this industry now, doing what you do and everything, I mean, obviously besides Greyhound and your experience on it, is there a TV series or a war movie that go-to for you that you've been impressed with from a military technical standpoint?
Yes, there are actually two. They're very close to each other. Both basically independent films. One of them got snatched up as it was being made, but The Lost Battalion is my number one. It is absolutely fantastic film. The technicalities of everything in that film, down to every button on every uniform, was correct. The way the Germans were portrayed, 100% correct. I think the actors did a fantastic job in that particular type of trench warfare that moved into wooded area warfare was portrayed the best out of every film I've ever seen. Followed very closely by the first Saints and Soldiers movie, where they told a very, very simple story, one of the ones that wasn't told all that often, if ever, and took a handful of actors, taught them their lines, and then almost everyone else in the film were historians and reenactors. So people that actually cared about showing the history and making sure it looked correct.
Yeah. Well, you know, that's another aspect, too, that I think a lot of people forget about war films, especially when they make Civil War films, is the reenactors that they invite to help tell the story, to get the history right. The Gettysburg movie and then, you know, Gods and Generals. I know more people that are reenactors that got to go be a part of that experience and was like, no, I know you're telling a movie and all, or doing a movie, but there's certain things you have to understand about the military at that time that doesn't get talked about.
Right.
So, and that's another thing that, again, gets, you know, really romanticized in the U.S. because it's our bloodiest war. It's just really the little attention to details. I'm going to give a shout out to him. There's a great folk singer here in Dallas. Brendan and I have known him for about 10 years. He passed away a couple years ago, named Judd Merritt. And I honestly don't know what he really did in real life. I just knew that he was a Civil War reenactor, did all that history, and sang folk music and Irish music. And a lot of the songs that he put together in his set were things derived from a historical standpoint. That he kind of talked and would teach lessons and all that, but very much into all that, and just having conversations with him in between sets was always fascinating. But yeah, so, but that's interesting. I don't think we've actually ever talked about those two films on our show before. The Lost Battalion is an incredible film. I'm not saying it's an easy one to watch, but you're right. I got to absolutely agree with you for the technical aspects of that. The other things that somebody asked me one time if Heartbreak Ridge was technically right. And I'm like, I don't know if it's technically right. It's just an entertaining movie with Clint Eastwood as a gunnery sergeant in the Marines. And he's very good. But how technically right, or can you romanticize liberating Grenada?
Right.
No. That movie is it's a fun movie. I love when they throw in the mix of veteran movies. But that movie is solely based on this is what a gunnery sergeant in the Marines is going to do to train an infantry unit. That's it. Okay. And he's right, you know, because he has that experience, and officers from Annapolis who are in the Marines who have no experience. I'm like, it's like you just sit back and shut the fuck up with your ring, and you let the guys who actually done this. I served with a guy who came straight from college. You know, he was a specialist going through basic training, and you know, you knew he was going to be an officer in charge one day and everything. He was younger than I was, or well, actually about the same age. I was 24. I was always kind of impressed with him because any opportunity he could find to ask sergeants questions about stuff, he was like, yes, I have this, but I know that my education is going to come from these guys, you know. And I don't know where he is today or if he is still in it, but I always thought you're going to make a good officer because you know who to talk to. Unlike some of the other buffoons that are like, hey, look at me. You know, I got bars on my shoulder. Anyway, now, since we're going to kind of wrap this up a little bit, we've all talked about some of our favorites, mentioned some great films. What is the absolute worst film that gets it wrong?
Oh boy.
Besides Pearl Harbor, because that's just a foregone conclusion. Chad, is there another movie that is just absolutely horrible as a war film that you feel like gets it wrong?
For me, it's a close race between Wind Talkers and The Hurt Locker.
Oh man,
Thank you.
I was gonna say that one.
Thank you.
Oh. I was hoping somebody was going to say The Hurt Locker. That's what I was going to say. So let's just touch upon that film.
I mean, I don't know if they could have gotten a bomb squad guy's perspective any more off base than they got with The Hurt Locker. I mean, this, you know, when they throw that stat out there that he diffused like 800 and something IEDs over the course of his career. That means he did about 3 a day, every day for his entire career.
Right.
Okay. And he was a complete hothead who disobeyed orders. He would have been turned into street paste on the first week of his assignment.
There is no greater insult to a war film than them actually winning an Oscar for that film.
Amen.
Oh
Yep.
my.
Amen. I thought it was ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Does it make an entertaining film? Yes. Does it make a good war film? Hell no.
No. I got nothing against Catherine Bigelow. I think she's a great director. I like Zero Dark 30. And I love the original Point Break. Original Point Break is an awesome movie. Okay. But no, that was just an insult. Okay. And I almost kind of feel like they had to do Zero Dark 30 to correct the fact that we told this story, we made it entertaining, blah, blah, blah. But now we're going to talk about all the intelligence gathering that went into finding Bin Laden, okay, and try to do it right. So that's interesting. Also, Wind Talkers is not that good of a movie.
No, it is not.
I mean,
Not a fan of Thin Red Line either.
Oh.
The only thing I like about the Thin Red Line is that scene with Woody Harrelson where he's like, "I blew my dick off," and that's
Yes.
that's about it.
yeah,
That's
them
what
just
I'm
trying to talk about the philosophy of war, and you know, it came out the same year as Saving Private Ryan. I'm like, look, I get that you want to have philosophical discussions about war. Okay, I don't need a 2.5-hour film for that. I was so damn bored, and everybody jumps on the bandwagon of like, I got to make a Terrence Matlack film because he's such a great artistic director. That may be true, but it shouldn't have been that film.
No.
Never has a man done so much with so little.
I know. Wow, I agree. Besides Wind Talkers and The Hurt Locker, Scott, do you have one that you just absolutely hate? To go on.
Oh man, there's like 900, and I'm trying to pick a really good one. I kind of, part of me wants to say Jarhead is fucking stupid, but I don't know. I'm not a Marine,
Yeah.
so I can't say that. They don't make Air Force movies, so.
Hey, they do. It's called Stargate.
Go ahead, die on that hill, Marcus.
It may not be accurate, but by God, it's entertaining.
It is entertaining.
I really did like the series with Richard Dean Anderson. I just thought it was a fantastic series. So, yeah, I don't know that much about the Marines, you know, when it comes to Jarhead. I know I've read his novel before, and he's a great writer. So I don't know if the movie really translated it that well from that experience. But again, it's kind of hard to have that experience in a short-term war like the Persian Gulf. when you really didn't get to do much and all that. I feel like Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood is a better representation of an infantry unit in the Marines.
Honestly, I would say Generation Kill is a better representation of,
Wow.
Marines, getting in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the number of times that I have spoken to guys who were Marines and they served in that, during that time, or they've served in the Middle East, every time that I mentioned Generation Kill, they're like, no, that's straight up it. That's exactly what we did the entire time.
James, how about you? What's literally the worst film from a technical standpoint?
I cannot remember the name of the film to save my life. I had it a moment ago. Steven Seagal.
You talking about Under Siege?
Yes,
Under Siege?
Under Siege. That's the.
Siege is so bad. Oh my God! I blocked that out of my memory. Why would you do this to me?
Because I was a crew chief. It's what we do, brother.
We're gonna need group therapy after this podcast. Wow. Yeah, it may be an entertaining film, and another good one with Dale Dog, but wow, you just so it's not a first-hand story, but it's from a friend of ours who's a publicist, who actually used to be a publicist with Tom Hanks, John Weldon, who loves to share this story about working kind of with Steven Seagal. The guy that played Bishop in Aliens, the actor, and I cannot remember his name, not Bishop. He had the show Millennium.
I know you're talking about. I know you're talking.
That's Henriksen, isn't it? That's Lance Henriksen, right?
Right. Yes. Thank you. The one movie they did together, what was it? On Deadly Ground, or
yeah.
Right.
On
It's just a complete horrible movie. But he loves sharing this story about Steven Seagal, who basically got belligerent with Henriksen about, okay, you got to do this to really make me look good in this movie. And he's just like,
I'm sorry, I'm not capable of miracles.
Yeah, exactly. I
Wasn't
feel like
Arlie in that movie too? Wasn't Arlie Ermy in that movie as well?
I don't know. I've only seen it once, and I kind of blocked it from my memory because
It's been a minute.
I think he was.
But Under Siege. Okay, if there's two good things about Under Siege. I know it's a horrible movie, but there's two good things. Tommy Lee Jones is great as always because he's Tommy Lee Jones. Okay.
Chewing scenery like he does.
Right. Not saying it's accurate. And two, everybody wants a girl jumping out of a cake with gorgeous tits. I'm sorry, we just do. We're men. Get over it.
I disagree. It's a waste of cake.
Damn.
Pie overallis, my friend. Pie overallis.
Actually, Gary Busey's actually quite hilarious in that movie. But again, I'd rather just watch him in the original Point Break movie. Wow. Yeah. For me, really, I was going to actually say the Hurt Locker in the beginning. I just a huge, huge insult and stuff. But one thing I do kind of want to complain about when they try to adapt a book, and I was thinking about this, we've had many, many versions of it. If you've ever read All Quiet on the Western Front in school, it's a great novel, from a firsthand experience and stuff. I've always felt like they've never been able to do a good movie version of that novel and never to really capture anything. Now, I know the one with the guy that played John Boy on the Waltons, was
Richard Thomas.
Yeah, thank you. And I remember watching it in school. But I feel like that's just one of those things where you're never going to be able to capture the prose and being there in the trenches and understanding it. And I don't know if there's ever really been a great World War one movie. I mean, I love the Gallipoli movie with Mel Gibson, but I just don't know if Hollywood is capable of being able to adapt a really good novel about war without trying to romanticize everything and getting it wrong.
Well, I think probably, arguably, the best on-screen representation of World War I was probably that docupic that Peter Jackson did a couple of years ago. They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yes,
Right.
yes, I would agree on that. I would agree. All right, we're going to close this out. Obviously, there's a lot of movies out there that we can certainly complain about, but there's a lot of good ones too. We've given you some great recommendations. Thank you, James, for giving us two movies we've never talked about that people should go and watch. If you are a fan of Pearl Harbor and you think that's a good movie, go ahead and stop following us. We're just done with it.
We don't want to talk to you no more.
Right, and the Hurt Locker. Don't give us. We don't want no. We're just
Go take your Ben Affleck, formed a jizz rag, wrap it around your neck, and jump off a banister, you asshole.
We call like we see it on this show. James, we want to thank you for joining us today and talking about Greyhound. So glad that you got to have that experience, that you're in this industry. What is next for you? You said you're working on the 8th Air Force series on HBO.
I'm not personally doing that, and HBO didn't pick it up. I can't remember which company wound up picking it up. It may have been Apple. Can't remember. But personally, I've been doing a lot of advocacy work for the Air Force Wounded Warrior Program.
I want to talk about that.
It's an actual division of the U.S. Air Force under the Department of Defense, and what we try to do is provide mentorship for anybody with an injury, illness, or wound during their service, all service-connected disabilities. Help them transition out of the military into civilian life, get the benefits that they need. And also we have adaptive sports programs where we try to show our wounded veterans, including myself when I entered this program back in 2015, that there's still things that we can do physically, even if we've got a broken spine or missing a limb, cancer, just about anything you could think of. So it's a really great program. I highly recommend anyone out there that is watching, if you are of any service branch, each branch has their own Wounded Warrior division. I highly recommend getting in contact with yours and see what programs are out there to help you out. At the very least, you can get a mentor that you can speak with that can answer questions for you or help you along your journey. As far as the entertainment industry goes, been trying to plug with every veterans group and civilian group I know. Captain Dale Dye has a personal project that he's been working on for years now, a film called No Better Place to Die, and it covers the 82nd Airborne that jumped behind enemy lines on D-Day in order to secure bridges along the Meredith. He's been doing a lot of fundraising, trying to get this project on the go. And Mr. Hanks and several others in Hollywood have signed on to try to help further the development of this project. So please check out Captain Dale Dye's Facebook page, No Better Place to Die, or their website by the same title.
Okay. Is there a crowdfunding campaign going on that people can donate to?
There was one. It was marketed mostly to the veteran and veterans families communities, and it did raise some money, but not the entirety of the goal. I'm sure that they might be going in that direction again sometime in the future, but right now they're trying to secure funding through other routes.
Okay. And one more time, what is the project called?
No Better Place to Die.
No Better Place to Die. Okay. We will put something up on our website about that. We definitely want to let everybody know about it. And thank you for letting us know. I did not know. I personally didn't know anything about it. And sounds like a great thing to donate to. And as far as we are concerned on this show, especially as veterans, anything Dale Dye wants to do, we absolutely wholeheartedly support. Let's do it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, again, thank you for talking about the advocacy that you were doing. I did want to mention that as well. And again, thank you for being on our show and talking about Greyhound. Great movie. Sounds like it was a great experience. and we'll definitely be talking about more war films and stuff in the future. And hopefully, once we get past all this pandemic bullshit, we'll be back at AllCon next year. We'll all get to hang out and have a beer and party for more than one day.
Right.
That's our goal. All right, everybody, we are out of here. We will be back next week talking about the top 10 characters in books, after the top 10 characters in comic books. And as I said at the beginning of the show, you on social media, give a shout out to Brendan Smith as he's recovering at home and probably sleeping a lot because of the drugs. But anyway, thanks again to our guest, James. And
Thank you for having me, Marcus.
check out Greyhound on Apple Plus TV. It is worth the watch. So thanks again. And we are out of here. A bit of intro music. All right.